Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to Always Receiving Nur Quran Study. We are continuing to study Surah 64, Surah at-Taghabun, and most likely tonight will be our last session on the Surah, and we will meet again with a new Surah, inshallah, next year. Bismillah. So, without further delay, I'll turn to Sister Yamina to lead us in tonight's session. Bismillah. Jazakallah khair, Sister Yamina.
Bismillah. A'udhu billahi min shaitan ar-rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So we stopped at Ayah 12 last week, and maybe just for a reminder, Ayah 11 was about being aware that calamities are also befall us also by God's permission, and they are not outside His will. And the test for ourselves, to check with ourselves whether truly we believe in God and in everything being an ayah, bearing a message from Him, is when a calamity befalls us. How do we deal with it? And the ayah 11, it says that no calamity can ever befall humans unless it be by God's leave, meaning by God's permission. Hence, whoever believes in God, he will guide his own heart towards His truth. And God has full knowledge of everything. And remember, we talked about these names of God pertaining to knowledge being repeated again and again. He's being Khabir and Alim and knowing everything. And in the next ayah, which is ayah 12, we're told pay heed then unto God and pay heed unto the messenger. And if you turn away, then know that our messenger's only duty is a clear delivery of this message. وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ فَإِن تَوَلَّيْتُمْ فَإِنَّمَا عَلَى رَسُولِنَا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ. And you see here, there is a repetition. أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ. Pay heed unto God. It could have been pay heed unto God and His messenger, but it's pay heed unto God and pay heed unto the messenger. And anytime there is repetition, we said that it is an emphasis and it is an indication, it is a sign that something very important is going on. Important in the sense that we need it. Remember, we gave from time to time examples like sustenance, for instance. We eat a few times a day, but we drink water much more often, and we breathe constantly. And what does it mean? It means we need air more than water, and we need water more than food. And so this is a point. This need is very important, as we repeated many times, because it is the key with which we connect to anything with anything, and especially with ourselves. So like guidance will only follow guidance to the extent that we feel the need for it. Otherwise, there is no way, just by imitating the motions of prayer, for instance, won't make it a worship and won't enlighten our words and won't connect it to our neediness and therefore to our ubudiyah, and therefore make us aware of the blessings and that the source of the blessings, the gifter of the blessings. So this need is very important, and here this repetition is an indication that we need to pay heed to God, and therefore, in our terms, what does it mean to pay heed to God? If we do truly, then we will pay heed to his messenger. And what does the messenger bring us? The message. So the message is important, and the messenger is, his life is the embodiment of the message. So again, there is no compulsion, it's a choice. Following the truth, following guidance is a choice. And they cannot be compulsion. It's not like there may be, but it's better not. No, there can't be, because this is about a person opening her heart to the light of guidance. So it's a choice, and it cannot be forced onto anyone. It's up to the person to open their heart or not, and how much they would open it or not. And so following the guidance, again, is being aware of our need for it. And what is this message, this guidance that the messenger delivers? The next ayah comes with the answer. And so ayah 13 says, God, there is no deity except him. In God, then, let the believers place their trust. The message is, there is only one deity, only one God, only one being that deserves worship, because it's the only source of all your needs, the only source of goodness and perfection and beauty. And therefore, place your trust. Let the believers place their trust in him. Allahu la ilaha illahu, ala Allahi falyatawakkalil mu'minun. And the key word here is the trust. Because if we truly believe in God, and therefore we follow his messengers, in other words, we act on the guidance, on the message that he brings to us, that he teaches us, that he lives himself, he follows the message and acts on it, then could we trust anything, anyone, any being, any entity other than God? So it's like the practical test. The outer outcome of that believing in God and paying heed to him, paying heed to his messenger, is to trust him. If I cannot trust, it means there is something still lacking in my believing. I don't know who God is. And therefore, that can't be called a belief, because remember, belief here is iman rather than belief as in the English language. Iman is that when you have that knowing without doubt. And it's only when we have that trust, that tawakkul, that we can truly surrender to our Rabb. Because then we know that He is guiding us through our life journey. That even I'm saying even, but like it's not an even. It's an even in the perception of the one who is starting the journey. That even in times of calamities, we are being guided because those calamities are not befalling us haphazardly. They are created on purpose. God's willed them, and therefore the attitude totally changes. There is an inner transformation because now what looked like a foe is a friend in disguise. There is a blessing. We'll be looking for the blessing, for the purpose, for the meaning of what we normally look as a calamity, because we were created not to like it. But we forget that we were made not to like it for a purpose. The moment I say I was made not to like it, I said, what is the purpose in that? But when I am in a state of ghafla, in disconnection, I imagine that I am the one who doesn't like it. Why is it created then? Even if I remember that it is created, then it is not a genuine question, but more like a rejection of what's going on. And so I'm not at peace with creation, and I cannot trust. There is no trust. There is distrust, actually, and I cannot surrender. And no wonder then there is this inner conflict, and we cannot solve what's going on. So it's very important that we believe in God and that everything is His. Are signs from Him. Remember in the first ayah that everything makes tasbih, meaning glorifies God. يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. That everything in the heavens and the earth glorifies God. And like the ayah 11 said, even calamities, even things that we are made to dislike, everything is an ayah. Everything is from God. Everything has a message. And if it is from God, that message is a message of wisdom, is a message of compassion, and it serves a much higher purpose that what I can imagine. Definitely has an aspect that looks to God. Remember the face of God, to look for everything, for the face of God in everything. And that face of God, we had said, is the face that looks to the beautiful names. So in everything, whether it looks ugly or pretty or beautiful, it's always a mirror to something that is awesome, to something that is beautiful, that is pertains to Akhirah and to the eternal life, the eternal realm. And so that's very important, because only then we can trust, and only then we can truly surrender to our Rabb. And we know that He's taking care of us, whatever the situation. And that's why this trust and surrender, it's like if you have an electric device and you unplug it, that electric device cannot function. And it is so for the human soul. When we trust and surrender, it's like plugging in, and the electricity starts. We're connected to the source of the electricity. I mean, it's just a metaphor, of course, but just to show that it's very, very important, the trust and surrender. And it's only then that we can transcend that feeling that life is like a burden, that we are taking care of our life. When we are not connected to our Rabb, when we are not aware that we are being taken care of, that there is no way I can take care of my life. But this is only when I am in a state of, I'm aware of what I'm doing and in a state of consciousness. When we are unaware and mindless, it feels like I have to bear the burden because it's a need, but I don't see it as the need is being taken care of. It feels like I am the one who needs to be taking care of those needs of mine and controlling my life circumstances, and life becomes like a burden. I'm striving, I'm struggling, I'm working hard. When there is trust and surrender, we transcend that perception of life. It's not there anymore. And as a result, we'll inshallah realize that yes, we have no control over the world. We have no control over even our breathing or our many things. But we choose to let go of that desire for controlling everything and being in charge, because we know that I am not in control and I cannot control, but everything is under control. Everything is being taken care of. I don't know how, but it's being taken care of in a most beautiful way, so swiftly, so easily, that I often forget that it's being taken care of. And as I always remind ourselves, the surrender is the trust and surrender happens moment by moment. I think this is very important, because we think right now, yes, I intend to surrender all my life, but I can only do it, be in a state of surrender only now, because there is only the here and now. I cannot say anything about tomorrow. I don't even know if I will be in this world or not, if I will be alive or not. Because often people get overwhelmed and they say, oh, isn't that this too much? But that's a trick of the ego, saying this is too much, you can't do it. In fact, it is easy, because it occurs only here and now, and I can choose this moment to trust and surrender. And that's why the remembrance is so important, because we tend to forget, and then we remember and remind each other as well, inshallah. And so part of the living that will take us to that state of trust and surrender here and now is realizing, remembering, seeing, observing, and witnessing the tasbihat, that everything is indeed praising God, that indeed everything is glorifying Him. And we talked at the beginning of this surah and in other surahs as well, how everything is actually are actually ayat and signs to the divine names and glorifying His names. So the goal and the intention is to right now remain in that state of awe and sustain that state of awe at the constant creativity, that we don't only witness it, we actually live it, we experience it. And we can start from our own breathing. That's a very good very good point to start, inshallah. And this will lead us to a state of gratitude and more tuning in with what's going on truly as creativity being in control, being a mirror to rububiyyah, rather than things happening haphazardly, happening to us, happening to others, and focusing more and more on finding and seeing, inshallah, wajhullah, the face of God in everything. And I want to also add and again remind ourselves again and again that this trust and this surrender is a way of being. It involves the heart. It is not only thinking about something. It involves the heart, it involves the intention, it involves making a choice and acting on it. And so thinking and reflecting is part of the process, but it's not a process of only thinking and reflecting. It is not limited with that. When it is limited to thinking only, it's very easy to relapse into that illusion of being separate and independent. And when I perceive myself and everything else as separate and as independent, however much I talk about believing in God and the signs, it cannot be my reality, because I see myself as disconnected. I perceive myself as independent. So my Rabb, I imagine that maybe he gave me something outside of me, but I'm not even aware that my very life is a gift. And so it remains very, very limited. And the door to shirk remains wide open. So this is more, this trust and surrender is, there are of course levels, and those levels, they correspond to levels of awareness of the heart and the soul, the spirit, the ruh. And therefore, as a result, corresponds to levels of being aware of our connection to everything else and everyone else. And that makes ubudiyyah not only ibadah. Ibadah is like the specific worships. Ubudiyyah, my own identification, I identify as abd. Like my whole life is a mirror to rububiyyah. And it becomes very easy because it becomes my identity. And therefore, ibadah also becomes easy, not a duty, not a burden, but a time to celebrate, a time to remember how honored and how to remember my gratitude, to remember my joy, a time of celebration. And the next ayah is, O you who have attained to faith, O you believers, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, O you who have believed, who believe. Behold, some of your spouses and your children are enemies unto you, so beware of them. But if you pardon and forbear and forgive them, then behold, God will be much forgiving, a dispenser of grace. Much forgiving, merciful. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إنا من أزواجكم وأولادكم عدوا لكم فاحذروهم وإن تعفوا وتصفحوا وتغفروا فإن الله غفور رحيم.
That's a very interesting verse, right?
Isn't it? Yeah. But it says here some of your spouses.
You mean not all?
Yeah, not everyone. And it also can be understood, I understand it as some of your spouses, not everyone, and also even the same spouse, not everything they do, not maybe sometimes in some
aspects.
In some aspects,
or from time to time.
It would be that, in that sense, like, so it's not like one person is totally 100% an enemy and the other one is 0%. It's like, because, and what does it mean here to be
enemy? Are sometimes an enemy to our spouses. I mean, just to kind of is a balanced approach.
Yeah, I mean, in the Quran, who is the enemy? We told about Satan being the enemy, the disbelievers being the enemy. But before that, if you remember the fall of Adam, before the fall, with the fall, when it says قَالَ اهْبِطُوا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌّ. And so when Adam was sent onto earth, we're told, like, go down and you will be enemy to each other. However, does it mean that this is the only option? No, but it means that unless we follow divine guidance, we're more likely to be to relate to each other in that way, because when we're self-centered, we're only going to connect with the others in our own terms. And if every one of us does it, acts that way, it's going to be a very pretty ugly world. That's how, and those small conflicts in families, among people, workplace, and things, we may not see them, but like at a more global level, you see wars, for instance. That's an aspect of those inner conflicts. And that's pretty much ugly. But unless we follow the divine guidance, as we told in the Quran and again, when it says الأخلاء يومئذ بعض لبعض عدوا إلا المتقين. So who are those who are not enemy taqeen, those who are God conscious? In the tafsir, in the commentaries on the Quran, this has been understood as referring to the love of this world, the worldly, meaning a love of this world without any awareness of the hereafter. As though we came here to stay here forever, or even if we are aware that one day we will die and leave this world, as if there is nothing on the other side. That's it, it's the end, so you do whatever you want here. And most probably what they emphasized the most was amassing goods and property, and relying on that property and on those goods. And people are afraid if they don't have enough. And this is more likely to be seen, this kind of relationship and that fear within the close family, rather than with friends and in a larger circle. It may be there, but with a larger circle, it's easier to, you're not with them all the time. So here it's seen as your spouses or your children, your family may induce you to be busy amassing more and more worldly property because they rely on them, because that's their warranty. However, not all spouses and children are like that. They may, and usually the example that's given, there are also spouses and children who prompts you to give to charity, to spend it on others who are more needy, and live with qana'a. How would you say qana'a?
Contentment?
With contentment, thank you. And to trust, and therefore they can help you actually put your trust in God even more, and those are not your enemy. That's how it was traditionally understood.
And we can
also, yes,
think of it more broadly. Definitely, amassing and indulging in the world is part of it, but it's obviously can be taken as a symbol of the larger problems that we have in life. It's not just about accumulating wealth in a distracted way, but it could be anything that really draws us away from our mission to know God and love God in the world.
Yes, anything worldly means, so far as we understood, is anything in the world when we connect to it, when we interact with it, without realizing that it is a gift from God, without realizing that it is a mirror to the names of its maker, without realizing its connection to God, because we are unaware of our connection to God. So in that disconnected state of being, we relate to other things horizontally, if you could say. It's like it's between me and them, and therefore I rely on them, I expect something from them, and it could be, as you said, not necessarily property and accumulating money or something like that, but it could be knowledge, it could be fame, it could be anything, because I'm expecting something from it, a part, and not realizing that it cannot give me anything because it itself is given, it itself is being created. And clearly that's a way to shirk.
And this verse is also very interesting in that, as you have said, we tend to categorize people and label people. These are believers, unbelievers. These are the bad people, the good people. And but there are these kind of verses. This is not the only one, in which you something that's so close to you, like your spouse, your child, somebody, your life companion, and most likely that person is not in the unbeliever or bad person category, whatever labels we have. That person is most likely the same labels as you are and very close to you in your life. And here you go, that person can be enemy to you, and most likely that person is not aware even that he or she is distracting you or preventing you from or wanting to prevent you from getting closer to God. So it's so interesting. The person is so close to you, and all these labels that we put, this is mushrik, this is mu'min, this is idolater, and so they don't really apply. Most likely you are under the same label category, but that person you can find as enemy to your goal of being a full human being in the world as God's worshipper. That's so interesting. And then it comes back to verse 11, because it says, no calamity can befall you unless God's leave. So somebody so close to me can be against me, and vice versa, because you happen to be a spouse also, so I can be unwittingly I may be an enemy to somebody also. So it's
and as you said, it's a calamity if you look at it that way, but that calamity, remember, it's also by part of God's will.
Yes, and that's why the verse continues onwards by saying attack back. It doesn't say attack back because it's not. They are not against you per se in an explicit way. They're against you in the sense of wanting to take you away from your path. And the way you fight back, the verse doesn't continue on to say you also try to take them away from God. Like it's not like that kind of a situation. If they're your enemy, then you're their enemy. No. If they want to take you away from God, even unknowingly, you don't do the same to them. So it's not a situation where you can continue the conflict by adding on to the conflict. So the solution it gives is very, very interesting. And I think that connects back to verse 11, the trust element in there.
And trust, and also it's telling us something about trust and something about what we think believing is. Because if, as you said, I fight this conflict by the same means, then I'm not only I'm not trusting God, I am not a believer in God. Because remember, to believe in God means to follow His will. It means, and His will is, for instance, He willed Rahmah, and seek His face in everything. So the closer we are to God, the more we become like a channel to His creation, to His will, we become like a conscious mirror reflecting His beautiful names. And so He is merciful. So if we are close to God, if we believe in God, if we trust and surrender to Him, then we let the rahmah, the mercy, manifest and reflect through us as well. And so we act in His name, and one of His name is merciful. One of His name is forgiving, so we forgive. We act with forbearance. And then and it says, like, it's not like you should be very good people. You should forgive them, forbear, pardon, forbear, and forgive. No, it's at the end it says, why? Because فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Because God is much forgiving and very merciful. So if you trust God, if you believe in Him, then you follow His way, His will, which is forgiving. But this is not like I forgive and forbear and I am not aware, naive. I let them. I don't take any precaution. It says فَحْدُرُوهُمْ. Be aware of them. Like beware. Beware. Don't follow. Like stand your ground in your path, but deal with them with gentleness. And also when you said like they may not be aware, I think that's one category. And I think it depends, because among our very close ones, like our family, there may be those who actively distract us from following guidance. And there are those who may themselves be the distraction, or they may be doing it unwittingly, doing it unknowingly, but some may be doing it actually actively. Like insisting that they want this kind of life, insisting that there should be this and that, and to cater to their wills, you may find yourself compromising your own values, your own priorities, your own whatever. And it could be that they are not actively distracting us, but they themselves are the distraction. And that becomes clear in the next ayah. Because sometimes our love for our family maybe the temptation to make us compromise our faith, or our commitments to the path of trust and surrender. And it could be that they could be also consciously.
There's also we move on. I mean, so usually in our relations, I mean, even on something which is a little bit farther away, like work or so, we have the situations that people say something and we are we feel offended, or we are hurt, or people say something and we suddenly lose all confidence that we had on that we are here on earth, created by God, living in abundance and in mercy. So we lose that just because someone says something, right? I mean, don't you have something like this on the workplace? Someone who easily says something and you are immediately in a kind of whatever situation where you have to defend. So, and this, if you are at home, I mean, this with the spouse, that's more intimate immediately.
I feel that there is one difference, which is when it happens at work. If someone says one thing and I immediately lose that trust, then there is something. It's again a sign, of course, but it's a sign about me not being well grounded in my belief. However, with the family, there is something even more that makes it a little bit more difficult, because it's a constant. We are constantly together.
And it's closer, much closer to me.
Yeah, and so you take it more seriously. So
and it's a place where I look for trust and safety, security, but of course we have, so that makes it more
tempting and more trying. It's more trying because it's like 24/7, constantly, and it's not like you can ignore your colleague or someone in the street. It's people who you care for, people you take seriously, and if it's there constantly, even when you are grounded in your belief, it becomes not easy. From one perspective, it's not easy. It's like a calamity. From the other perspective, the other aspect, what's good in it, remember, every calamity comes by God's will. It is an opportunity to renew our belief, renew our allegiance to that surrender, to renew our intention and our choice. So it's not like something to be scared about, scared and like, yes, we will fear it, we'll be aware of it, but that fear needs to transform into more intentional living, inshallah. So it could
they might be forceful about it, right? So I mean, on work,
they could
out of their own needs and out of not being aware of something that they overlook. But that's the same with our spouses and us.
Mm-hmm. So they could be actively, or as you said, like insistingly distracting us. And they could be not doing it knowingly, or they are themselves the distraction. The next ayah 15.
You mean destruction from destroy, or distraction from distracting?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, because we love them, because
they
we care
distract
for them.
us. Huh.
Like a child, he's not doing something consciously trying to do something, but it could be me because I care too much. I care so much, let's say. It could be a trial. And in Ayah 15 says, your worldly goods and your children are but a trial and a temptation, whereas with God there is tremendous reward. إنما أموالكم وأولادكم فتنة والله عنده أجر عظيم. So sometimes we forget, for instance, with the children, because especially if the child is small, because when they grow, they also have, when they're small, they also have choice, but it's not the same as when they are adults. So we forget that they are also part of the trust. It becomes like my child, and the interaction I have with my child will often reflect my own inner fears, hopes, and we project them onto the child, for instance. And what came to my mind is reminded me of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He was in a similar situation with his people and his own father, who were idol worshippers. So he had to learn to deal with them, and at the end to actually distance himself from their worldview, because the distancing may not be an actual physical space distancing, but you have to sometimes take a stand that this is not what I believe, this is what you believe, this is what I believe, even if you are interacting with them. And it's not easy, especially in the beginning. It takes time until when it's going to be easier, when my own word perception of my ubudiyah, of the world as a creation of God is clear. The clearer it is, the more grounded I am in that belief and trust and surrender, the more the people around me, especially in a close family, will either take a stand and they're angry, or they learn to respect that, okay, it's different. Some people never get to accept it and they keep fighting, like Ibrahim alayhi salam's father. And later we see another kind of relationship with his son when he dreams of sacrificing his own son, which, remember, last year we talked about it at Eid, and we understood it as indicating an opportunity for Ibrahim alayhi salam to reconsider his love and his attachment to his son, for his son. So it was an opportunity for him to revisit his love for his son and to love his son, Bismillah, in the name of God. So even the love is in the name of God.
Sister Yamina.
Yes?
So in this context, it's important that the verse doesn't say leave them and separate from them, because if they are enemies to you in the sense of a spiritual enemy, then my eternal life is at stake. I should leave them, or disconnect from them. But that's not, it says forgive and forbear and pardon, and that highlights the importance of recognizing that this isn't about them per se, this is about you. Like, I need to be aware, and when I'm aware that what they want to do can't hurt me, when I'm aware and focused, because in the case of Ibrahim alayhi salam with his son is somebody who surrenders to God. He says, I need to kill you because I think God is telling me to kill you. He's like, okay, if God is saying, go ahead with it. Like, what, this son wasn't an enemy to him, but it can be a challenge, and the solution is not to say, oh, these people around me, they're too close to me, I can't escape them, and they are not aware of God, and so they are distracting me from God. This is an excuse. At the end of the day, the point is for me to change myself, and you say, stand my ground and change myself, and then the rest, tawakkal ala Allah, just trust in God. It isn't about it's not just about not attacking them, but it's also not about, okay, then I'm not playing with you anymore. If you're going to do this to me, I'm leaving. It doesn't say leave them.
Because if it said I leave them, I totally didn't get the point. It means yes.
Yeah, Yamina, just before you continue, please continue. I just think that for those who are here and who don't remember the Ibrahim story, we should make a side remark that this Ibrahim story, of course, it sounds like crazy if your father gets the order from God to kill you, then to say, okay, father, go ahead, because which kind of God would order to kill his son? But this is really kind of missing some crucial points, and for those who don't, who are not aware of this, we can just only refer to the discussions that we had back then. So you need to search then for Ibrahim's story on the web pages. Please continue, Yamina.
Dr. Yamina, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I just wanted to, make a little point here. I don't know if it's correct or not. That once in verse number 9, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Yawm at-Taghabun, that will be the mutual loss and gain. So it really doesn't matter, because whether it's, your family or finally, eventually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, all the disputes will be figured out, and he will, all the problems and all the criticism and all the differences of opinion that we have will all be resolved on that day. So, that's a big, I think, statement verse when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Yawm at-Taghabun. So it doesn't really matter if it's your family or somebody that you work with, or so it involves the whole cross section of people, because any criticism here or any defaming of somebody or will not have any effect on that day. Will be the real judgment and real whatever the what should I say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides, that will be the main final decision. And so it doesn't really matter, we just have to forgive people and wait for that time, I guess.
I think that's correct. However, there is this ayah which is saying specifically, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن من أزواجكم وأولادكم عدو لكم فاحذروهم. O you who believe, behold, some of your spouses and some of your children are enemies unto you, so beware of them. So yes, it is true. I agree with all what you say. However, there is something else going on here that is particularly to do with people who are very close to us. And it's not about not forgiving them, because it says here, so if you pardon and forbear and forgive, then behold, God is much forgiving, a dispenser of grace. But it also says before that, beware of them. So it's something that in this area, there is a whole area is about it, is attracting our attention to something that many of us, most probably most people, will go through at different degrees, in different circumstances, different ways. And from this area, remember Andrea said in the beginning, and it does sound that, but actually when you stay with it, especially when I read the second part, which is, but if you forgive and forbear and forgive, then know that God is much forgiving. It is from one perspective giving us the opportunity to exercise the forgiving and being merciful. And it's only through forgiving myself that I can truly say that I believe in God as the one who forgives. Because if I believe that God is the giver of everything, and I can't give what is in my pocket, I can't share it, then I can say I'm just cheating myself. I may know it, it's information, I don't deny it, but I don't truly believe it. Because if I truly believed it, that I know that he will give all the time. He's the one who gave. And if there is a situation that requires me to share, I know that the sharing, that urge to share, is also from him. He's the one who gives. He's the one who says, give it. I'll give it. It's the same with forgiving, the same with being compassionate. So it's an opportunity to let us forgive. It's easy to forgive someone who I don't see every day. It's easier. It becomes harder when it's someone who is next to you, like being patient, being compassionate, being forbearing. It's more trying. So we can see this as an opportunity to exercise that. Do we truly trust and surrender? From one point of view, it is about, am I grounded enough in that belief and trust? Because I can easily be tempted. I can be easily forget about my direction, my path in life, and start acting as though there's no akhirah. It's already difficult when I'm on my own. When I have people who incite me, it's so easy to get distracted.
Plus, in verse number 11, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no kind of calamity can occur except by the leave of Allah. So that also gives a lot of consolation and comfort to us. And in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just informing us that, you have to be aware, right? Basically. But then in the context of 9 and 11, it's a big consolation how to cope. It helps a lot, these two verses. That's my point.
And Sister Yamina, the interesting thing is that another interesting thing I must say for me is that if we look at the Prophet's life, they had the situation when they left Mecca, and when they did have those military confrontations between Quraysh and the believers. Literally, the families fought each other. That there would be the father on the one side and the son would be on the other side. So there are situations in which you literally fight, but this isn't within the family. But this isn't that kind of one, and because in that case, when the family is like in that particular case of Quraysh, they were literally persecuting them and kicking them out of their homes and physically persecuting them for their belief in one God. So there, you don't need a verse like this that says they are your enemy. Clearly, they are attacking me. They're enemy. So that's another situation in which the challenge takes a different form. This is a different form because this is a situation where you are exchanging love and care in a family context. This person can be your child or your spouse, or you are having these interactions and reflecting God's mercy onto each other. At the same time, this person may be distracting you from God or wanting to actively distract you from your God, even as he is reflecting God's mercy to you, or she. So it is a different situation in which you may not recognize that this person that I love so much, or I live so close to, let's say, that this person is actually against me. It may not be clear. So that's why we need a warning that they may be against you. Because one of the rules for interpreting the Quran that I had learned from you is Quran doesn't ever state the obvious, right? If 2 + 2 is 4, it's not going to tell you 2 + 2 is 4. You know it, right? You have a nose. I know I have a nose. The Quran won't make statements like this that is already obvious. If somebody's trying to kill you, he's your enemy. Well, I don't expect a verse like that because I intuitively know that if somebody's trying to kill me, I know that person is my enemy, right? So it won't state obvious. Whenever there's a verse, it's not stating the obvious. So it's here when saying that there may be enemies unto you, it's clearly a situation where I may not recognize that. And I need that reminder that as a spouse, as a child, and a spouse myself too, I can be a distraction, actively distraction to somebody else, and they may be for me. And this is subtle because these people are so close to me, and we exchange love and compassion in other ways. So I just wanted to say I'm just at awe because this reminds me of the verse that says we have given a lot of all kinds of parables in the Quran. وَلَقَدْ إِنَّ ضَرَبْنَا فِي الْقُرْآنِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَثَلٍ, something like this. So we have given you a lesson on everything, or a parable about everything. This verse reminded me of that, because there are situations where our Creator calls us to leave. There are situations where we are asked to make hijrah, to migrate, to leave. Or there are situations where we need to take up the defense and be actually in the fight. And there are situations where we need to just recognize. It's a situation where I can go with the flow, and I should recognize and not go with the flow, and that's it. I don't need to be hostile, or I don't need to leave. I just need to recognize and stand my ground and be compassionate. And it's just amazing how the Quran is speaking to all different contexts of human being.
It means here it can be subtle. It's not necessary, like it's not obvious. For instance, if a spouse or children or someone very close, they're unaware, for instance, that calamities happen with divine will, and therefore they are meaningful. So they keep complaining, they keep complaining about what's going on, and it's easy to be influenced if we don't keep conscious. And not to be influenced by them, it doesn't mean that we tell them, oh, can you shut up, or everything is from God, or something like that. Don't you know? But when the very practice of forgiving them and being forbearing and merciful with them will keep me in that state of awareness that will ground me in my trust, and I will be, like, let's say, not influenced and not tempted to join into the complaining, into their worldview. And it will be if I keep complaining about them that they are complaining, I'll be doing the same thing. It will be hard to remember haqq. But if I say, yes, they don't know, if sometimes you can't explain, you can't say anything because they will reject it, they get angry with you. Some of you may have family members like this. So what you do, because you want to be merciful and forbearing, that state of mind keeps you aware, and you will remember. Actually, their complaining makes you realize that, like, how we can make ourselves more miserable about what's going on, because we keep recreating it, visiting it, re-talking about it. And so it happens once, and for days and days and months, and the whole family has to relive it again and again. And so that becomes like, oh, we do it to ourselves. We wrong ourselves. So it's an opportunity to remember and to trust and surrender again. Or, for instance, we love our children and we want to please them, because usually parents want to make their children happy. But when we start, there is a fine line between wisdom and, like, the balance between wisdom and imbalanced relationship. It's when we try to make, for instance, a child happy in their own term. I mean, it's a child, she's a child, she doesn't, that's all she knows. But if I try to do that, I'm not making tarbiyah, I'm not educating the child, I'm just trying to make them happy. And I may end up compromising my beliefs and my akhirah, because sometimes when they start growing up, it's too expensive, but I'm still doing it. Or I get I get angry, but I don't show it, instead of acting on the anger in a balanced way. So many things are going on. It could be because I'm afraid of confronting the child. I'm afraid of losing the child's love. And so many things are going on. And then I end up compromising my beliefs, my authenticity, my integrity, without realizing. It happens slowly. It's like eroding, an erosion from within. Why? Because we're not consciously pursuing that guidance. We're not consciously intending to follow and receive divine guidance. So in all these cases, if we end up being distracted and influenced, we are responsible. Because we were supposed to be grounded, ربنا ثبت أقدامنا. Yes?
I mean, so Elif keep posting some things, and I think that I can see there something of what I want to say. So, I mean, when we fall in love, then there's something going on that attracts us to these people, and this might just not be the completely good stuff, right? We might be attracted also because we have some certain blind spots, and they have some certain blind spots, and that fits so nicely. And it fits so nicely, that's of course somehow ironically reminded. I mean it a little bit ironically, because it fits so nicely as a chance for us to grow. Because we have to learn something really, really serious here. And the seriousness is like, I mean, there's one example that I feel like I understood best. So this is like, give and do good deeds. So believe and good deeds at the same time. So when I give charity, or when I give to someone else and I do it out of my own property, then I missed completely the point. Then I can, at the same time, I don't have to give, because I mean, I can give, and it's nice for the person who gets something, but the chances that I humiliate that person because I'm not aware of that things are given to me and I'm just distributing are really great. And the same is with these spouses. I mean, so the verse says those who have attained to faith, and that is on the same level like believe and do good deeds. So if you have your spouse, so I mean, because there are these issues, right, that you think you are not worth and not lovable, and then you meet someone and he has some other issues, and then he somehow has the blind spot maybe exactly there, and then you get it as you are not lovable and you're not worth enough. And then the wrong thing that you can do is forgive completely all the time. That's completely wrong. So first you have to kind of get yourself into that presence of God, into knowing that of course you are valuable, and of course you are that you are here on earth is of course you are loved. And only then, when you have this full muhsin trust, then we can talk about pardoning and forgiving. And of course we should do, but it's really something where we shouldn't be too fast. I mean, so because if that's often then very counterproductive to forgive all the time, but you forgot to first make all effort that you can do to be in that state of abundance.
Then that's not truly forgiving, because we said I forgive. Actually, I just decided to put it under the rug, because if I truly forgive, it shouldn't one day say, it's too much. If you forgive, it shouldn't be there anymore, because forgiving should be an opportunity to transform it, to see the good in it. It becomes not an issue between me and the person, but it becomes between me and the person will be resolved once what you're saying, this is how I understand it, is I see whatever happened between us as, for instance, if I don't like it, let's take it into calamity category. And it is happening. It's happening with a purpose, with a meaning. And when I find some of the purpose, when I see some of the beauty in what happened, anyways, it will be easier to forgive, because then I see that what happened, yes, the other person may have not a good intention, may have done it something ugly to harm me, but the whole experience was beneficial. I learned from it. I grew in it. I got closer to my purpose in life, to my Rabb. I grew in my ubudiyah. And so it becomes easy to have mercy on the other side, the other party, because I know, I'm aware of my own vulnerability, my own weakness, I make mistakes as well. And so I'm not saying that person didn't make a mistake, but it becomes easier to forgive. If I do not go through this and just forgive in the sense of putting it under the rug, I put 1, 2, 3, and I say afterwards, I explode and say, it's enough. That's not truly the forgiving that we are here. The forgiving that is talked about here is right after, followed by the name of God. Ghafur, he is the one who forgives. So I'm not forgiving in my name. If I'm forgiving in my name, it's like giving from my pocket. I give 1, 2, and then I say, I gave enough. But if I'm giving in the name of God and the source is infinite, I don't say that was too much, because if I say it's too much, I am in at awe as how much I was given that I could share with others.
That's really also a medicine, because in these relations, because it's so close, we are really terribly hurt, and some people cannot forgive their whole lives. This kind of stuff.
Yeah, because
knowing that God is merciful to me and to others is here the medicine.
I can't forgive if it's about me and I'm stuck in that. How could you do that to me? And it becomes like my own self-worth is connected to that event. It becomes very hurtful.
Sister Ziba,
Dr. Yamina,
just 1 second.
There's one more thing.
Sister Esma, just one thing. Sister Ziba had her hand twice up, so I want to let her take a turn. Sister
Yes,
Ziba, did you want to say something? I saw your hand up.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, I agree with what Sister Yamina is saying, and this what I want to add is that it's very easy to cut off your ties and not forgive other person and the only I think the ayah which tells us about other person being if he's taking you away from the awareness of Allah, then only you have to be aware of that. If your kids or your wife or your husband is distraction and it's taking you to in a state of ghafla, or then you need to be aware, but you should not sever your ties with them and be forbearing and forgiving in that sense, so that because we know the hikmah behind it, and it is Allah who will put in their heart, bring them to the correct path. So in saying that forgiving is a big thing, but if you are doing it in the name of Allah, and if being forbearing, it will help them to come back. If we just ignore them or take them out of our lives, then I think we are closing a way to bring them back to Allah. That's why Allah has told us to be forbearing. And same thing today, actually, I was talking to my kids about, and it was reversed, like they were counseling me rather than I giving them. I was telling about situation, and I was a bit what's going on around the world, around us. So I was telling them we should go back or something like that. So they said, Mama, why do you want to do that? I said, I don't want you to grow up feeling, to hide your religion or to feeling insecure. So they said, no, on the contrary, it's giving us the opportunity to talk about Islam and to explain it to others what our real beliefs are. So I was on the side of Ghafla, and alhamdulillah, they brought me back to. So that was it was maybe an hour ago we were talking, and so I thought if I add that, inshallah, it should go.
So it's an opportunity, because
Yeah.
if I run from this and run from that, it means I have to go back to 11. It means I didn't understand that calamities are coming by God's will. And it means go back to 10. It means I don't truly believe that everything is a sign. So I have to go back to subhanallah, the ayah is so beautiful. And indeed, in ayah 15, it says, your worldly goods and your children are but a trial and a temptation, whereas with God, there is a tremendous reward. In one of the Mufassirun, one of the commentators on the Quran said, if God gives you wealth, you busy yourselves with how to keep it. If He does not give you wealth, you busy yourself with seeking it. So when will you free yourself for Him? And of course, freeing ourselves for Him means I am not seeking wealth. I may be wealthy, but I'm not living my life to seek wealth. I'm living my life to seek my Rabb, and my Rabb is the bestower of wealth. He's the bestower of wisdom. He's the bestower of knowledge. If that He bestows that, nurun ala nur, light upon light, it is a side reward, but it is not the goal. So I liked it. I liked how he put it. He says, if you are given, you keep yourself busy with it. If you're not given, you keep yourself busy. So what do we do? Sorry?
Dr. Yamina, I just wanted to comment. This was a very important point. That's what I was trying to mention, that especially Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not telling us to leave them. Like in Surah Araf in 199 verse, he says, let me read in the Arabic. خُذِّ الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضُ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. So he's not telling to cut off the ties or leave them and arifu. He's not telling to leave them, like he's doing it for the Jahilin, but he's not to sever ties like I think Zeba, right? Said just now that you cannot. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not telling you to do that would be an extreme position.
Actually, even those verses can be read in different ways. Grammatically, you can say that Jahilin is not a whole person, but when that one particular person exhibits jahl, ignorance, you keep away from that aspect. But it does not mean that you do not interact with them in other ways. So, thank you.
Waredu anjahilin means what? Means stay away, right? Avoid. That's the translation.
Yeah, we keep away from. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that keep away from the ignorant. What if it's my own mother or father or something? I keep away from that. Their ignorance, their being ignorant, but I'll have to interact in other ways. Anyways, there are different ways to interpret those kind of verses. So thank you for sharing. Yeah. But the emphasis here is on as you said, on the forgiving. Alhamdulillah. So here when it says, okay, our children, our worldly goods, they were given to us, and our children are a trial and temptation. So what do we do? How do we love them, our family, our children, in his name, like Ibrahim alayhi salam, he learned at the end of the story, so that our love for our family, for our children, for our whatever is given to us, property and everything, becomes an integral part of our ubudiyah, so that our interactions and difficulties with balancing, the wisdom and compassion without spoiling, for instance, in this case, it's children, without spoiling our children, for instance, and making it an opportunity instead to grow in our ubudiyah, to experience how much we need divine guidance. This is telling us that it's not easy, it's a fitna. It's very easy to spoil the balance. And so what does it mean? From my perspective, it means that is it true? Yes. It's very difficult to keep the balance. So it brings out a need in me that otherwise I would not be aware of. It's not like, hunger. You're born with being aware of hunger and thirst. This is another kind of thirst that with these verses, we're made to be aware of our need, how much we need this divine guidance, and how much we need to trust and surrender to our Rabb. And that's the next ayah 16. Remain then conscious of God as best you can, and listen and pay heed and spend in charity for the good of your own selves, for such as from their own covetousness are saved. It is they that shall attain to a happy state. فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم واسمعوا وأطيعوا وأنفقوا خيرا لأنفسكم ومن يوق شح نفسه فأولئك هم المفلحون. So this is the recipe for success. Do you want success in this life and in the next? Falah. Then remain conscious of God, and with that consciousness, listen. Listen, it doesn't say to what, so that it is open. Listen to him, listen to his messenger, listen to his message, listen to his messages, to his ayat, listen to the calamity. They all are bringing messages from him, and pay heed and spend in charity. And all this is for your own good. So so in practice, the test, the practical test is spending in charity. If I cannot spend in charity easily, it means I'm not paying heed because it's saying spend and I can't, or I do it with difficulty. I'm not listening because if I was truthfully listening, I would pay heed. And I'm not God conscious. I have not intended because I could know and not make the intention. It's about that surrender that's like the switch on and off. It's our choice. I decide whether to surrender or not. I may have all the evidence to trust, and I may choose not to. May Allah protect us. So can I give easily? My test is there in charity. Is giving in charity an opportunity for me to rejoice in what is given to me, an opportunity to remember how much we are cared for, myself and my family, an opportunity to surrender in gratitude, then inshallah all is good. Otherwise, it means I'm not sufficiently conscious of God. I'm not listening. I'm not heeding his guidance. So I'll ask myself, why? Why? It's a choice. There is no compulsion. Either I surrender based on evidence of all the creation. Remember the first ayat at the beginning, starting with يُسَبِّحُ لِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. All that is in the heavens and on earth extols God's limitless glory. And then we were told that mulk, everything belongs to him. He was all powerful, all knowing. So I have to go back and find the evidence. If it's a matter of I don't feel I have enough evidence to trust, then the Quran, alhamdulillah, it's full of evidences. If I'm living ghafla, if I choose to live in ghafla, then I don't want to wake up from my illusion. I choose to delude myself that I am an independent being, which I'm not. I cannot even survive few minutes without breathing. And so all this illusion is based on a false sense of reality. Remember last week when Maha asked about, some people think that's the reality and we just need to surrender to something we don't know, this unseen. No, that's not the reality. That's my sense of the reality, and it's an illusion. It's based on deluding ourselves. It's a reality where there is no room for transience, no room for death, no room for life being gifted and sustained by another. It's totally, it runs totally counter to the facts. And so it's a choice. Do I choose to stay in ghafla, or do I opt to make a change, to start questioning my sense of reality, which really is not reality. Deep down, we know we are not independent. We know we can't sustain our life. We know that one day everything is passing. We know that everything is transient. But we prefer to put our head in the sand and pretend it's not. And that's not reality. And so it's the next one is, if you offer up to God a goodly loan, again, the metaphor of the loan and the bargain, the tijara, He will amply repay you for it and will forgive you your sins, for God is ever responsive to gratitude, forbearing. إن تقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا يضاعفه لكم ويغفر لكم والله شكور حليم. It's like right when we are at that fork, that point where we can, we're tempted, we're not yet fully grounded, when we can easily be pulled into one side rather than stay onto the path of truth, of haqq, then there is this encouragement, this saying, if you offer up a good loan to God, like everything is from God, but there is this very gentle and compassionate way of putting it, and very encouraging. He will amply repay you for it. Like, I gave life to you. If you use it in the way that is most satisfying for the heart and the soul, the human heart and the human soul, because the human heart and the human soul were created for the hereafter. They were created to be abd. They were created to love and worship God. And whenever we go out of that purpose, we find nothing. We cannot find inner peace. We cannot find that joy of the soul. We cannot find satisfaction. Yet, we insist sometimes on looking everywhere except where we should look. And so, to make that path, which is the path, the only path for us, more attractive to us, say, okay, you give a loan to God and we will repay you in a very awesome way for it, and we'll forgive you, يغفر لكم, forgive you. Why? Because God is shakurun halim. He's responsive to gratitude. He loves those who are grateful. So can you see there is a hint here? In the beginning, it seems what first attracts me is the bargain. I give my transient life, I will get huge reward in this life and in the next. And so I'm very grateful. But when I start walking in that path, I will realize that I'm not giving anything. Everything is given to me. Subhanallah. And then I realize that he's Halim. Halim is much more than forbearing, but let's say forbearing, but in subtle ways. And then the next ayah is knowing عالم الغيب والشهادة العزيز الحكيم. He is not only responsive to gratitude and forbearing, but he also knows all that is beyond the reach of a created being's perception, as well as all that can be seen and witnessed. The Almighty, the Wise. And you see it ends again with Alim al-Ghayb wa-Shahada, with God's name pertaining to encompassing knowledge. He knows everything, what can be seen and cannot be seen. So when in ghafla, it means he knows everything, and so we only cheat ourselves when we pretend not to know that we're on a journey and that life is passing, and that our pretending doesn't change that reality. And when we live consciously as abd, then it's good news that he knows everything, because it's relieving to know that God is all-knowing, and to remember that he knows everything. He knows all my needs, all what's going on in the world right now that I can't control, that I don't know what's going on, you know. And so to remember this constantly is also a source of great inner peace. And remembering that he's also almighty and wise, that he creates everything for a purpose. That helps a lot in grounding us in that belief, and it makes it very easy to trust him and surrender to him. And life becomes really much, much easier and meaningful, because we will start deciphering the messages, the divine names, seeing the face of God in everything, even in the so-called calamities, inshallah. And we will start looking forward to that awesome day, Yawm at-Taghabun, that this surah is about. This surah has prepared us to live our life so that we are ready for the next one, so that we are ready to meet our Rabb on that awesome day. In Surat al-Kahf, we're told whoever looks forward with hope and awe to meeting his Rabb, his sustainer, let him do righteous deeds and let him not commit shirk with and worship others with his Rabb. And you see, this almost like summarizes what this ayah has told us in details. Like, you believe in God, you look forward to, then you will look forward to meeting him on that day. And you only will look forward to meeting him when you act according to the guidance and you do righteous deeds. And without committing shirk, without worshipping others with your sustainers, because when we leave our commitment to our purpose in life, we leave our obediya and try to cater to the needs of our close family, to our children and things, what we're doing, it's a kind of worshipping them instead of our Rabb. Unless we are doing it in his name, when we are doing it in his name, then it cannot be a distraction. It's done within the boundaries of ubudiyya. It's not done at the expense of ubudiyya. And this doesn't mean only the time and the money, and it's also the mindset. The ayah is فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. And there is a beautiful few ayats, a beautiful passage in Surat al-Fajr, which is يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. O soul at peace, return unto your Rabb, unto your sustainer, well pleased, well pleasing, enter among my servants and enter among my paradise. And I wanted to end up with a hadith by a Muslim, which is about the meeting of God, because I think that this day of Taghabun, this awesome day, it may inspire awe and even fear, because yes, it's a matter of eternal destiny. Yet it also inspires in the believers the desire and the eagerness to meet God, to meet the Rabb. So this hadith is reported from Aisha radiallahu anha. And she said that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever loves to meet God, God loves to meet with him. And whoever dislikes the meeting with God, God also dislikes the meeting with him. And so Aisha radiallahu anha asked, O Prophet of God, Ya Rasulullah, is it because of the dislike of death? For all of us dislike death? He said, it is not so. But rather, it is that when the believer is given news of God's mercy, his approval and his paradise, he likes to meet God and God likes to meet him. But when the unbeliever is given news of God's punishment and his displeasure, he dislikes to meet God and God dislikes to meet him. So, inshallah, for the believers who act on their belief and trust and surrender and give charity, listen and heed God and his messenger and give charity and act on that guidance, inshallah, for them there are good news of, O soul at peace, return unto your sustainer, well pleased, well pleasing, enter among my servants and enter my paradise. And so there is that awe, but what is more felt is that excitement and the joy to meet God. And he also likes to meet the believers, inshallah. So this is Surah at-Taghabun. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. I'll end up with the first 10 ayat of Surah Al-Kahf. You know, it's Friday and it's good to recite these verses on Fridays. It's hadith. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين إن الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلونهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. آمين. والحمد لله رب العالمين. So inshallah we'll meet next year with a new surah, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Yamina, and Jazakumullah khair, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. This was a drop from the ocean of Surah 64, and we will continue journeying in the Quran, and may Allah make it a healing for our hearts, and may Allah make us among those who would like to meet Him. Okay, Assalamu alaikum, and I'm so happy that I'll be seeing most of you at the retreat. Look forward to it, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So,